What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwell here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. And there's just something about the underdog, ladies and gentlemen. You already know that. But today, the one and only. First Phorm CEO, Sal Frisella. How are you doing today, sir, on this Tuesday? And I know I don't want to outdate the podcast, but it's a Tuesday today. So how are you feeling?
Good, man. Good. I appreciate you having me on, and I like the energy to get started there. And everybody loves an underdog story. I can tell you that.
And I think, let's dive right into it. Have you, what was your underdog moment in your life, Sal, where you kind of, felt like everything was stacked against you and you kind of, like underdogs do, conquered, rose in the moment. And what was your underdog moment?
Yeah, I still think we're the underdog, right? Oh, wow. I don't think we had an underdog moment. I just think it evolves. And, when we first started the brand, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, we were the true underdog. And it was reinventing really kind of how you see founder-led brands today in the sports nutrition realm. 15 years ago, they weren't there. And, it was something that we were reinventing a category and really trying to go after, how do you navigate the storms of bodybuilding.com and Amazon carrying product? And how do you really, build quality products and keep them in a retail environment so that we could really position ourselves as a premium product to help get people the premium results. And, that was a pioneering effort that we went forth. In fact, I was talking to my first retailer today, Steve Calabrese. Shout out to Steve in Queens. He's the owner of Natural Body, him and his partner, Tim. I remember I can tell you exactly where I was at. I was driving on the phone, and it was such a new concept to have, retail specific map protected pricing online, direct consumer brands. They just weren't around. It didn't have Optimum Nutrition. You didn't buy from Optimum Nutrition. You bought from bodybuilding.com or Amazon. You didn't buy from BSN. You bought from bodybuilding.com or Amazon or your local store or GNC or Vitamin Shop. And so the independent retailers were just getting grounded, pounded to death. And so, with the DNA of our business coming out of sports nutrition specialty retail, we wanted to pioneer a brand that allowed retailers to sell a quality product that wasn't going to get beat to death on Amazon Lightning deals, so that they could create an interaction with their customer base that allowed them to teach them about high quality products, the difference between, what I would say a cheap, value product is and a high performance product. And it really allowed those specialty retailers to connect to the consumer. And so that was a strategy, as an underdog strategy, that we deployed. Going into the marketplace, we didn't have any marketing dollars. I was employee one, drove around with a suitcase full of samples, right? I drove the entire country. So I true underdog. And I still have that dog fight in me, because I very vividly remember what it's like, to pull up to a sports nutrition expo and be the only guy on a white table, right, with a tablecloth, and I'm sampling and shaking. And so, that's the DNA, but I think that's where all great stories are based, and I think, that's where a lot of the lessons are learned. A lot of the credibility is had. I still have a great deal of credibility with my retailers, that I'll still hop on the floor and shake down and sell with them. So, that underdog mindset, that underdog mentality, people can get behind, right? Because it's relatable. I don't know anything about being on top. Never been on top. Because the way I look at it is the underdog just transitions. Now, we might be a pretty large business inside our sports nutrition realm, maybe the largest independent sports nutrition brand out there. But in the grand scheme of business, we're still the underdog. When it comes to the Amazons or the Nikes or the Under Armours of the world, we're an underdog. And so the story, doesn't change, right? Because our DNA is to fight, our DNA is to be disruptive. And so you take that same exact business model for the last 15 years that got us here, and we're just going to redeploy it back out into a different stream of a different level of business, I guess you will, with that underdog mindset.
And you're the second person to say kind of that you keep that underdog mentality. Dakota Myers, obviously, who's an American hero, won the Medal of Honor, was telling me that too. And it gives me a different perspective. Some people, I always thought you can be an underdog and then you can be whatever is next after that. But I think if you keep that mindset the whole time, success will follow. And then obviously success has followed First Phorm. You guys have scaled. Now, how have you maintained, the unique culture that you guys bring without kind of diluting its core values, especially as more people join in the movement, Sal?
Yeah, I mean, first, let's go back. I don't want to dismiss Dakota's a really good friend of mine and just an absolute gem of a human.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to listen to that podcast. He's just a good dude. And I think the world needs more good dudes, right? And so, culture, I think, if you hear about First Phorm or anybody comes to First Phorm or they talk about First Phorm, usually the culture is kind of the keystone that everybody references. And the reason they do is because it's not a byproduct of what we do. It's a focus of what we do. We just happen to sell protein powders. We just happen to have, pre-workouts, multivitamins, and greens. But our focus is around building strong relationships and building people of character. And so the DNA of our infrastructure is around, finding good people and building them into people of character and giving them an opportunity to grow their career the right way, around a set of core values. And we allow those core values to really be expressed through our business. And it's just a cool way, what we feel, it's just a cool way to kind of introduce our culture to the world. And, I always believe if you want to do something, or if you want to fix something, do something about it. And I think culture in society personally is lacking, because I feel that integrity is low. And I feel that everybody, whether they're skating away from the accountability or playing victim or whatever it is, we try to raise an environment that's really around a true culture of winning and not only just high performance of, sales or production numbers, but measuring the high performance of humans, right? The human capital, doing things like, community trash cleanups and community cleanups and going out and running community workouts and, doing these things for free. We don't do them for notoriety. We don't do them for publicity. We do them because they're simply the right thing to do. And, a common saying that we have around here is there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. And life at times is going to be challenging, right? You're going to have curveballs. You're going to have storms. There's things that are going to happen. And if your core value and character makeup is strong, you can lean on that value structure and allow you really to offer you the stability to maintain the storm and to go into the storm. And so, that culture subset is extremely important to us. And I think a good data point to kind of measure that culture is, we have single digit turnover. After you get out of our warehouse, when you come into our corporate environment, we have a 4% turnover rate. And, when you have 365 employees that have 4% turnover, it's a very, very, very strong data metric that just speaks to the culture of our environment and then how we operate and really what we curate through our employees. Right. And so it's a we versus me mentality. It's something we put a great deal of focus on, and it's something that we're extremely proud of here at First Phorm.
And man, one other thing that I've been doing my research on, obviously, First Phorm and what you guys stand for, and fitness companies often kind of focus on that physical transformation, but you guys also emphasize the mindset and personal development. How do you see this aspect kind of impacting the broader fitness community over the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go back 15 years ago, it was really a me versus we environment inside the bodybuilding aspect. Mm-hmm. How old are you, Teddy?
25.
Okay, so you're still a baby, right? So when you were 10, I was slinging product, right? And I will tell you, it's just a much different environment in today's land. When social started, it's about building your personal brand. It's all about me, and these real strong egos were come out. But if you look back to the heritage of bodybuilding, go back to the Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger days, when those guys were training together, they were competing together at the biggest stages on earth, but they were training partners day in and day out. And, we felt that cultural change had to come back in. And that was our first cultural movement. It's hey, listen, this is we versus me mentality. We're going to go into this thing and we're going to make, fitness about team again. And if you've, noticed anything about First Phorm online, we do a lot of community workouts. We do a lot of individual team workouts here at HQ. Wednesday at 5, if you're ever in town and you want to throw down, there's a gnarly workout that goes down every Wednesday at 5 and it's open to all. Right. And so we really try to get that community fitness aspect back into this environment. And the reason that's important is because, I don't believe in DEI things. I'm not a identity politics believer, but I am a inclusive fitness environment believer. And I think everybody's got a place in fitness and everybody's got a place in wellness, and everybody really should strive to become the best version of themselves. And so when you look at, the reason we pour so heavily into the mental readiness, if you will, or the mental preparedness, developing these young minds is because, life's tough. It's not easy. And, if you're going to do big things, you better have great people. And so we don't hire, these skill sets, if you will. We build them culturally by pouring into our environment and investing into our people so that we can be a unified unit going into this underdog fight that we're facing. And so, pouring into your staff is sexy. It's cool.
Yeah.
I think just like 10 years ago, when we turned the narrative in sports nutrition from me to we, I think we as an organization, not even just in sports nutrition, but I think in organizations across the country, are really shaping kind of the mindset of how you treat your employees. They're your teammates. They're not your employees. My employees don't work for me. I work for them. And that piece of life, most people, they misunderstand. And, a lot of times they'll say, oh, you're at the top of the triangle, right? And I sit up here at the top and you make the decisions and everybody else supports you and follows you. I actually think you should flip that thing on its head and look at it. I'm actually at the bottom of the triangle. And if I'm doing my job as a leader very well, I'm serving my employees to the best of my ability. And part of that process is pouring into them from an education standpoint. Part of that process is showing them from a leadership perspective so that I can help develop them, whether it's a personal problem, maybe in a relationship, a personal problem with personal finance. Those are some of the things we see the most. Or it's just, a conversation and being what I'd like to refer to as a father figure for, people who maybe didn't have that. And so going back to that, there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. I just look at, our environment is very service-based. We're a servant-based organization. And if I'm going to truly lead by example, which is one of our core values, I have to be service-oriented. And so I sit at the bottom of that triangle doing the best to service our entire organization.
And not only are you the CEO, you're a mentor as well. And I think in both life and business, Sal, mentorship is kind of crucial. Now, how do you approach mentorship at First Phorm, and having, how have mentors helped shape you into who you are today?
Yeah, two-part question. So I guess I'll first start with what I seek. And the reason I think that's important is because it usually tells a story about why I'm so passionate about character. I seek men of character. I don't seek men of status. I learned a long time ago, and I don't share this story very often, but it's very relevant here, and so I'll kind of explain why. I played professional baseball at the minor league level, and when I played, I was really cool, right? And I use the word "cool" in quotations because I want to put that in perspective. I thought I was cool. I thought that I was the man. And when I broke my leg, and as soon as people realized that maybe there was nothing gained for me, I saw how fast I fell and how far I fell. And it really gave me an early eye-opening lesson to life in saying, maybe it's not about the status and more about the relationships that I have. And those people that carried me when I fell then, they're still in my life, and they're still intentionally in my life because I remember that they propped me up. And I share that because I don't seek status any longer. I seek value in relationships. And in that time of my life, I really got to experience some men of character, one of which is still in my life today. And the guy that when I played, there's two types of professional athletes. There's the ones that go out in the limelight, and they're always constantly on the scene, and they pull up, everybody knows who they are. They're at the bar, they got the big table in the corner, and that's who I thought I wanted to be at the time. And what I realized is as I've gotten older, that's not who I want to be at all. I actually want to be kind of like the other guys, the guys who are great family men, guys who are great leaders inside the clubhouse, who weren't the most popular outside, by the limelight, if you will, but the ones who were most respected internally. And I got to have some really good glances of it. And one of the best ones that I got to see when I was playing was a gentleman by the name of Mike Matheny. And Mike was, he's a Gold Glove catcher. He, managed the Cardinals for 5 or 6 years, got 14 years, I think, playing in the big leagues. He got 20-something total years, but a true professional and a great father and a great husband. And I got to see it. And it was a really good transition in my life because he's one of my secret mentors today. He texts me every day. I talk to him every day. Sunday was his birthday. And it got to give me a perspective of what I wanted out of life. And so I wanted to be a great man. I wanted to be a great husband. I wanted to be a great father. And so I stopped worrying about being popular and I started worrying about being character. And so that piece for me was huge to see. And it was better for me to experience because I had to experience the fall to understand. And then secondarily, how do I use that? So I understand now, how important character is in success. If I didn't have my kids, if I didn't have my name, if I didn't have my wife, if I didn't have my marriage, if I didn't have the respect of my employees or my team, I wouldn't have anything. And so I really try to teach at that foundational level. I try to teach character. I try to show them character. And then I try to instill the importance of why character is important and how it's going to help you through the tough times in your life. And why, like right now, because when I mentioned earlier personal finance, young people, because they want to be cool, they think they have to buy cool, right? Like I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy the most expensive car that I can afford. I'm going to go every single night to the bar and I'm going to try to be the coolest one there. And I try to maybe dismantle some of that thinking by teaching them through my lessons of failure and then trying to show them the correct way to build success. And character for me is the biggest pillar that I have. When you're not in the room, it's the conversations that are being had about you, which is true judge of your character. Like that's what your reputation is. And for me, I want those conversations to be very strong. And it's very intentional for me. I don't do it as a marketing ploy or a PR thing. It's how I lay my head down at night and how I find respect for myself and how I hope to build value for my kids here at HQ and then my family at home, right? And so I want my wife to know when she lays down at night, she's laying down with not a good man, but a great man. And I find that greatness I can't verify it for myself. I can only verify that through the people that I can impact on a daily basis.
Like I don't know why I was getting emotional during that, but I was. And to me, with all of your success, how do you stay humble? I mean, do you have daily practices, mindsets, to avoid that pitfalls of ego and leadership? Because we do see where you get to the high chair and you fall, and not you, but people fall because they let that ego get to them. To me, you're everything opposite of that. How do you kind of stay away from that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I got plenty of faults, so I don't want to sit here and act like I walk on water. I just think, listen, man, I get served humble pie pretty regularly, and I think, for me, that humility, stay humble is one of our core values, and you have to be extremely conscious on when you think it's you or when you think it's the actions or what do you think it is, and I just understand that at any given time. I try to, for me, to answer your direct question, I try to practice as much gratitude as physically possible. I never thought I'd be in the situation that I'm in. I believe that I kind of wanted it, but I never believed it. And so I don't take it for granted either. I look at my children. I mean, I told my kids this morning, the most important thing that I have in life is them. I don't place my value in things. I place my value in people. And I was blessed enough to have that early lesson on in life when I placed my value in the wrong things and I got burnt how low I could go. And I don't ever want to have that feeling again. And so it's go sometimes, and this is a good lesson for the audience, you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to fail publicly. Sometimes you're going to fail miserably. It's how you respond to those failures that ultimately create your success. And I had a choice, 20 years ago. It's 20 years. It's crazy. I had a choice 20 years ago, to respond or just to give in. And, if you remove quitting off the table, what's the option? And the option is to go fight. And that's that underdog kind of theme that you were referencing earlier is I think humility, I get to practice it because in the end of the day, like I'm not shit. There are plenty of people. I don't make the most money on my street. I'm not the most successful guy I know. I'm not, certainly free of sin and just kicking ass and taking names on the daily, so I have a lot of things to be humbled by, and so, do I have a great life? I have an unbelievable life. I feel like I'm the luckiest human on earth, but by no means am I the best. Like I'm not, and I don't think I'm the best. I don't act like I'm the best. And I'm certainly not, accoladed to be the best. I'm just a regular dude who's trying the hardest he can to live the life, that he never thought he would live. And I don't take it for granted. And so I try to practice that gratitude on a daily basis.
Man. And, that's the same. I mean, I think you're a superhero. I'll say that. But, to me, and I've never really admitted this on my podcast. I've been able to talk to some of the biggest names in the world. And I'm always just the regular guy talking to these amazing people. And that, to me, is the most humbling experience because, again, people don't watch my podcast for me. people watch my podcast for Sal. People watch the podcast for X and X athlete. And I think that's the coolest part about the podcast is people listening to people's different perspectives. And one thing I do have to ask, I was thinking about this. Obviously, being a leader comes with the pressure. You're often looked to for strength and direction. Now, during these tough times, how do you personally handle pressure, and what practices keep you grounded in this moment? I think that's something a lot of people struggle with in terms of the pressure and kind of keeping that cool. How do you kind of keep that cool?
Calm, cool, and collected, baby. I very fortunate to have a great deal of experience, in the saddle and the sense of pressure. But I have a lot of great people around me. Tim Grover being one of them, and I'm just going to totally rip his quote off because Tim, who was the mental coach for Kobe and Michael and Dwayne Wade, like he's written one of the best books ever written, Relentless, absolute gangster in life, personal friend of mine, Uncle Timmy. He's a good man. Just gives me chills because I think about how fortunate I am to think I have on speed dial the same guy that coached Michael Jordan. If I called him on Saturday morning, dude's picking up his phone. And it's a genuine friendship. It's not a transactional relationship. I don't pay the man money. He doesn't really do anything for me. I don't do anything for him other than I'm his friend. And that's an important thing in life. And to get to the question, pressure is a privilege. And I always tell my staff and I tell everybody, I'm pointing at my door. Nothing good walks in that door. If you're sitting in the right seat in the business, nothing good walks in my door. And I look at it as a privilege, and this is the best way for me to describe the saying, pressure is a privilege. It's a privilege because if the problem cannot get solved, they bring it to me, which means that they think that Sal can solve that problem. I have an opportunity to solve that problem, which means that I can drive value to those people's lives by helping them solve their issues. So that's a great opportunity. And pressure's hard. I'll tell you, man, like when it gets hot, it gets hot. But I've learned I'm not emotional. And, this is one of the beauties about playing baseball is you fail 7 out of 10 times. And if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you still get to the Hall of Fame, right? You're still like just illustrious career, and you've had massive amounts of failure. And when you're on the game's on the line, you're walking up and there's 25, 30,000 people in the stands and you're up to bat. Like it's an opportunity. You can be the hero or you can be the failure. And I guess fortunately or unfortunately, I failed so much in that opportunity. I don't even look at pressure anymore. I will tell you, it gets hot, but I really do, value as an opportunity, and that pressure as a privilege is real. And when I think what happens, the true answer here, Teddy, is people see pressure and then they want to play victim. And to me, that's a weak leader, right? That's a weak leader. When the leader starts, why me? The team feels it. They smell it. It's a sense, like they can look at it. And I believe in open communication. When things are wrong, I walk right into the team and say, hey, listen, we're good. This is the value. This is the importance about being people of character. We're going to do the right thing right here, and we're going to march right down this hallway. We're going to go right at it. My reference, I say, lean into the storm. We're going to lean into the storm. You're going to be all right. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It's going to be stormy. But when you build the boat the correct way, we're going to withstand those storms. And so, my job as a leader is to lean right into it. And if I'm a good enough leader, once I walk down the hallway, take a look around and see who's with you. And I've been fortunate enough to have, a few hundred people ride with me, and they've been with me for a long time. And I'd like to say, oh, it's all me. It's not all me. We have an unbelievable organization. I got a great, my let's call them secondary leadership staff, the guys that I deal with and girls that I deal with on a daily basis. They're tremendous leaders. And, together we've been able to curate this unbelievable environment where people will follow us. And I believe they follow us because they understand and trust that we'll do the right thing. And, when it gets tough, nobody's bailing. When it gets tough, we lean into it, we stand up to it, and we're going to fight for it. And so, that piece for me is something that's extremely important. And hopefully, when I die, something that my leadership and my staff can pay that remembrance down through my children. And I take that conversation seriously.
And pressure makes diamonds, Sal. And I guess that brings me into my next question. When you look back at your career over this, span of 20 plus years, I mean, what do you want your legacy to be, both with First Phorm and then personally as well?
Yeah. I mean, I want Phorm. Phorm for me is not a numbers thing. Like, whether we're the largest sports nutrition company in the game or not, I don't even know. And quite honestly, I don't even care. Like, I look at it as I want us to be known as the best. And I want us to be known as the best curators of people, the best curators of product. I know if we're not the number one product in each category, because that's a subjective thing. Maybe we're number 2 on taste, but we're fighting to get back into that 1 slot, and that number 1 slot is, in my opinion, a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, it's the product. And for me, I look at not the singular product. I don't look at the product itself, the one unit. I look at the product as an organization. And when I think about the best, I think who has the best customer service? Who has the best interaction? Who makes the top tier products? How do they return their products? How do they deliver their products? Is there a handwritten note in the products? What areas of improvement or separation are we able to provide versus our competition? And so when I say the best, I don't want it to be like I have the very best greens powder. I think we do, but my point being is the best to me is the best place to work. The best. I want to be the best leader that I can be. I want the organization to be the very best that it can be. It's about being the best. And the best for me is not the biggest. I don't measure it off of revenue. I measure it off of impact. And I can tell you we're the best at helping people change their lives. There's no doubt about it. We have more transformations than any other organization, maybe ever inside the sports fitness arena, maybe ever, even more than EAS. And when you think about that statement, that's a massive statement. We've helped more people lose more weight than any other organization ever. I don't really care about the revenue. Because if I can help somebody become a better mom, a better dad, a better brother, a better husband, a better leader, if I can provide a better life for our employees, when I talk about being the best, I'm not talking about chocolate protein powder. I'm talking about being the best. And so our mission is to help real people get real long-term results. Who's doing that the best? We are. And that's how we're going to continue to measure our business. And, you get a lot of these guys in our industry. Unfortunately, our industry is highly toxic for the most part. But I think, we've curated a lot of that kind of strong leadership conversations. And I have a lot of really good friends in our industry. And I know that they look to us because I talk to these guys on a regular basis. And I take a great deal of pride in that. And so it's not a measuring stick of dollars. This is the same guy who shows up to the club, the same player in the same locker room who shows up to clubs. They're measuring how big the contract is. And for me, I want to measure how good of a husband is the guy in customer service because I've championed to help him become the very best person that he can be. And so now not only is he making a great living, but he's now a better human. He's now a better father. He's now a better husband. I'm providing an environment for him to continue to grow. We make great products. He can impact somebody else's changes. I look at the entire product. And so for me, that's what I want Phorm to be. I want it to be known as the best. For myself, there's 4 things that I think you can measure a man on. How good of a husband is he? I think that's a huge measuring stick. And that's a game I want to win. I want to be the very best. My marriage is something that's extremely sacred to me. It's something I take extremely, extremely seriously. And I wasn't always a great boyfriend, right? But I've always been a great husband and I've worked on it and I'm continuing to work on it. And I want to get better. And that's that piece. Like I'm not at the pinnacle. I know that I'm doing good and I want to continue that rim. I think the best compliment you can give a guy is being a great dad, assuming you have children. If we're gonna change the world, we're gonna have to change it in our homes first. And so I look at those 2 things together. The husband and the father role. My kids don't care how rich I am. My kids care how good I am to them and how I turn them into people of character. So if money doesn't matter to my kids, then why do I care? I care about my children. I think when I think of the third one, I think about being a great friend. In some recent light, there's been some headwinds, and I think about, I've had almost 2,000 people check in on me through the headwind, right? I want to be known as a great friend, not a good friend, but a great friend. And then I think about the last one, the leadership, which is probably the first one, because if I'm doing this all correctly, I'm leading my wife to a great marriage. I'm leading my children to a great life. I'm leading my friends to become and challenging and become better humans. So that leadership capital that I'm able to instill in other people comes from how I behave myself. How do I react when it gets tough? And how can I take that lesson and go help other people when it gets tough for them? And so I take those 4 things extremely serious. And when I die, those are the things that I want people to remember me by. They're not going to remember what car I drove. I don't care. They're not going to read in the obituary, there lies Sal Frisella. He's rich. period, which happens to a lot of people. When I die, I want it to hurt. And if I do my job correctly, meaning I loved on my kids and I loved on my wife and I loved on my friends and I led my people, it's going to hurt. But they're all going to understand why it hurts. And so, and this, when I speak, I do quite a bit of public speaking. One thing I kind of try to leave everybody with is, and I'll leave this with your guys, live the type of life so when your funeral comes, when it rains, there's no doubt in your mind that they're going to show up and come to it. They're not. It doesn't matter how cold it is. It doesn't matter how hard it's raining. It doesn't matter what's going on that day. The day stops. And the day stops because they're going to honor you. We've all had funerals on days of people that were kind of like lukewarm on. They're all right. I'm going to go do it because it's probably the right thing to do. Or you know what? Maybe it's raining hard enough that I got a good excuse that I don't have to go. And I can promise you, come hell or high water, I'm never going to live one of those lives. And, for me, if you know me, I'm a fighter. If you know me, I don't do anything half-assed. I'm going to lean into that son of a bitch as hard as I can. And that's how I want to be remembered. And that part for me is extremely important.
That quote hit. I have never heard that, but man, that quote hit. Yeah, wow. And I guess my final question for you is: you've accomplished so much, and both in first form and life in general. What would your biggest tip for someone in life be? Just to who kind of had that setback, and then like you did, and then rose and conquered. What would your biggest tip be, Sal?
Yeah, the biggest tip in life is it's easy to operate when you're on top. I mean, when you're kicking ass and taking names, it's easy to do the right thing. But your life is ultimately defined on how you respond to adversity in the whole. And it's those next steps that you take through adversity in the whole that define who you are as a person. And when you think about, that tip is when you get knocked down, how are you responding? Because if we're gonna really judge you, we're gonna judge you off how you respond to adversity. Not when you're operating at the highest. It's easy to operate at the highest point. It's easy to operate when everything's good. It's hard to operate when things aren't good. And there's never a wrong time to do the right thing, especially when you're in the hole. And at that hole, like when somebody has a setback, you feel alone. It's easy to play victim in that environment. But I can tell you the best lesson I can give you is to stand up, hang your head tall, and get back to doing the good work. And in due time, if you continue to make the right decision, which is likely the hard decision, you're going to get back on the right path and start, setting that train in the right direction. And so I encourage somebody who's facing adversity to understand there's an opportunity right now when you're in the mud. There's an opportunity to go find that light and go chase it and go build that, whatever story it is, that comeback, that underdog story that you're talking about. That's the opportunity that presents itself right there. If you don't choose to go after it, that's you. If you choose to play victim, that's what most people do. They fail. I choose hard. I choose to lean into the storm. And whenever you're down in that hole, stand up, get your head up, and make the next best decision that you can right now with the decision you have in front of you. There's never a wrong time to do the right thing. And if we execute to that consistently on a daily basis, the storms pass. You get through the hole and you get moving, you get back in the right direction.
Sal, I feel like I'm ready to run through a wall right now for you, man. And geez, that was powerful. Now, before we go, the floor is yours. Where can we find your social media, First Phorm social media? And first 5 people to follow Sal on Instagram will send any First Phorm product of your choice to you. But Sal, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't know. Am I footing the bill for that or are you?
Oh,
I'll gladly foot the bill. I'm just kidding with you. Listen, man, I'm Mr. Frisella on Instagram. I've been on Instagram so long that, back then you had like code names, you would never put your real name on there because, like you were thought your friends might find you. And now I got a guy on there who has Sal Frisella who's trying to hijack it and try to sell it, but I won't do it. But anyway, I'm at Mr. Frisella on Instagram, Sal Frisella on Facebook, which kids don't use it, but it's coming back into the swing. LinkedIn, just Google my name, Sal Frisella. First Phorm, 1STPHORM. And, I'd love to have the opportunity of somebody struggling on their fitness journey. I know that our team's the best team on planet Earth and helping people right that ship. And so if somebody's struggling, physically and they want an opportunity, they want a real plan and a real opportunity to change, download the First Phorm app, come into our environment. We have 50 people that just help people through the journey of life physically. And, I'd love to have the opportunity if somebody's struggling out there to try to help correct that course for them. So, yeah, I mean, that's really it from that standpoint.
First 5 people to also download the app, send me a DM. We'll get you something out to you as well. Because I mean, I'm downloading the app the second this podcast is done. Guys, don't forget to check out Sal and Phorm on Instagram, Facebook, and all that. The links will be in the bio. Sal, again, thank you so much for your time, sir. And guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, the Underdog out. Hey, Sal.